Welcome to Lake TV's Community Spotlight Show, brought to you by the great folks at COMC, Central Ozarks Medical Center, where your health is their mission. And we're back to focusing on local history again. We've got the ladies from the Camden County Museum back with us. Daphne Jeffries, who is the president, and from the board of directors, Norine. Thank you, ladies, for coming by. It's so fun to talk history with you guys. And you can tell that you love history because it's just a part of who you are when we get to talking about it. You couldn't do what you do over at the museum if you didn't really enjoy it, could you?
Oh, no.
No, we've been there, both of us, just right at 30 years.
Have you really? Mm-hmm. Wow. Has the Camden County Museum been in that same building for 30 years or?
Yeah, for 30 years they've been there. They didn't start there, though.
Right.
Yeah.
And that building that's there, it's in New Lynn Creek, in the Lynn Creek area. Was that at one point a school?
Yes.
Or it was? And then that
It was
became...
built as a school for New Lynn Creek.
Okay.
Built by Union Electric when they built the dam.
Okay. So it was built around 1930 then?
Yes.
And when did the museum move in there?
In 1980.
Okay. So about 50 years after that. Okay. So it's you need to get over and see it because just the building itself is a wonderful piece of history. We were thinking we would talk about Hahatonka this time around. We've done a series of shows. Go back and look for those because every one of them is great. And this one we're going to look at Hahatonka and kind of the history there. That area has been there, obviously, way before that castle was built and the ruins were up there and stuff like that. This area of land was a very popular piece of land for a long, long time. Why is that?
Well, there are several reasons.
Okay.
As far as our history that we have, the Sioux Nation, which are a northern nation,
Okay.
wintered in this area.
Oh, they did. Okay.
And of course, we have we call them our Indians, you know.
Right. The
The
Osage. Yeah.
We
right.
call them our Indians. But, and they had a community just a little bit up the gravelway from where Millstone Lodge used to be.
Okay.
And that was their main,
Encampment.
their main encampment, their main town. And all the high bluffs along the river. I mean, this is what a man who had lived with the natives told me. All the high bluffs along the area were like watchtowers.
Sure.
They could watch the traffic on all of the rivers, which there are several rivers who join together here. And that promontory up there where the castle is was one of their lookouts.
A great
And
place
that
for it.
area, because of the kind of rock that's in that area, which, and if you've been to Hahatonka, you know that formation of rock,
Yeah.
that particular kind, is only in one other place in the world.
Really?
It's very unusual rock,
Okay.
you know, mineral.
Uh,
And so that was used a lot in their arrowheads.
Oh, really? It must have been easier to chip.
I
or
think it was,
something
yeah,
like that.
something
Okay.
like that. But anyway, that's where they would come in the winter because it was usually open. They had fresh water. They had an area to stay that was sort of sheltered.
Yeah. Right.
And so, and that was mostly the Sioux Nation that came down.
Okay. So obviously
They're a sister nation to Osage.
and so they didn't fight a whole lot. So that's good.
They were all together.
So obviously a big place for the Indians, but it was also a big place for explorers too, right? Well, who were some of the explorers that came through Hahatonka area?
Well, we had Daniel and Nathan Boone would hunt in the area. and that
Daniel
was
Boone?
The Daniel Boone.
The Daniel Boone.
Daniel
Daniel Boone.
Wow.
And that was like 1801-ish along in there.
Okay.
And then there were other expeditions through this area because this part of the country was, at that particular time, was
Frontier.
primitive and
Yeah.
it was unknown. So
Absolutely.
they were exploring it.
I think the Lewis and Clark, they didn't come all the way up, but they came into the area.
Yeah, they sent scouts up from the mouth of the Osage. They sent them up the river, which is what they did every time there was a tributary to the main river. They would send scouts up just to see what was there, because their job was to map the area and to see, you know, what the United States bought.
Right, absolutely.
Because they bought it, you know, it was a pig in the poke. They said we've got these millions of acres of land we're going to sell you, but we have no idea what's there.
Yeah, and what a great job they did. And you guys have mentioned Pike. Who is Pike? What is Pike?
Zebulon Pike. You've heard of Pike's Peak.
Yeah.
Okay.
It's the same.
It's the same Pike.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So he came through, and apparently he came through the Ha-Ha-Tonka area?
We're thinking, because there was a journal that he and his men kept of their trip, and it talks about this big spring. And from what we're reading in the journal, from what we've read in the journal, it seems like that would be the spring they were talking about.
Interesting. Fascinating.
So you know, I mean, it wasn't called Ha-Ha-Tonka then, but you know, it was just, in reading his journal, we're thinking that that's where.
Was that before Pikes Peak was named or after?
Probably before.
I would think before.
Probably before he was on his way west.
Isn't that fascinating? That kind of history is just so neat. How did we get the name Ha-Ha-Tonka? Was that an Indian name, or is that a white man name?
We're not sure.
Really? Okay.
Because there's about 5 different stories.
I see. Okay. Kind of like Lover's Leap. There's about 500 different stories.
Yeah.
Okay, so we're talking some wonderful local history. The ladies from the Camden County Museum are here, and we'll continue to talk about Ha-Ha-Tonka and the history behind that, and so much more. Thank you for joining us. Don't go away. It is Lake TV's Community Spotlight Show.
Take Lake TV with you wherever you go. Watch Lake TV on demand on YouTube, Roku, and Fire TV.
Central Ozarks Medical Center, voted Missouri's best and best at the lake, is recruiting team members due to growth. Amazing employment opportunities for both medical and non-medical positions with competitive salaries and outstanding perks. For more information, go to the Careers tab at centralozarks.org. COMC for the best medical, dental, and behavioral health care. Join a leader. Join our team. COMC, where your health is our mission. Join Lake TV for a cup of coffee with Will and Chris from Slumberland Furniture. Wild Will and Uncle Chris focus on what's going on at the lake, new growth, old traditions, and everything in between. Join us for a cup of coffee with Will and Chris. If it's happening at the lake, it's happening on Lake TV. From the Polar Plunge to festivals, parades, Aquapalooza, and boat shows, Lake TV has it all. Even the granddaddy of them all, the shootouts. If you're looking for places to party, things to do, or even a new home to move into, you've gotta love Lake TV. Welcome back to Lake TV's Community Spotlight Show, brought to you by the great folks at COMC, Central Ozarks Medical Center. So we're talking local history with the ladies from the Camden County Museum. It's Daphne Jeffries, Norine Albers, and we're talking Ha-Ha-Tonka. Such an amazing history. When you get a piece of land like that is so unique, there's a lot of people go there for whatever reason from over the years, and then they write it in their journals. So we've got a lot of that, which we talked about. So you guys brought up a couple of names to me. I wrote them down here. We need to talk about the Slickers. Who are the Slickers?
The Slickers. That's a fun part of history. And it was, the Slicker War wasn't just in Camden County. It was in different areas. And that's what they were labeled. But it was 1830s time.
Okay.
By the 1840s, they were done with. They were the Slickers, and then there were the anti-Slickers.
Okay, what does it mean to be a slicker or an anti-slicker?
In this particular case, in ours, Gunther was the town that was where Ha-Ha-Tonka is today.
Gunther?
It was near theirs, Gunther.
Okay.
And some folks came to town and started up a counterfeiting business over by the spring.
Okay.
And the Ha-Ha-Tonka area had a lot of good hiding places.
Mm-hmm.
So they set up their business there. His name was John Abbey. That was his name. He was
Okay.
the main counterfeiter. And they worked their way into the politics, of the local politics and the sheriff.
Yeah.
And to make a long story short, local folks didn't like that. And there
Okay.
wasn't all that much law. So slickers were kind of a vigilante committee.
Oh, okay.
And they would decide who needed to be slickered.
I
And
see.
they would take the outlaws or whoever they chose and would take them out in the woods and beat them with a hickory stick. And then they would have to, the whoever they were beating on, they had to promise that they would leave the county. So that's
Wow.
how they dealt with the local crime.
Wow.
Well, some folks didn't like that idea. So they formed what's known as the anti-slickers.
Right. Okay.
So, so they were, and they were all local town folks. But by the end of by 1840ish, along in there, that had pretty well solved itself. But like I said, it wasn't just local to Camden County. It was kind of a
Interesting. I'd never heard that before. Slickers and
there's a
anti-slickers.
cave at Ha Ha Tonka, still called Counterfeiter's Cave,
Yes.
Really? And then that must have been where they were doing
Yeah.
their work, huh?
Yeah.
where
Yes,
they
and it
were
was-
doing their business.
Yeah, it was called the bank, and it was a bank that nobody could go to.
Yeah.
But it was a bank.
Interesting.
And they did dig up some things, counterfeiting things. The farmers did.
Interesting.
In years afterwards.
Yeah. Okay. Another big name that comes up when you talk about Ha Ha Tonka is Colonel Scott. Who's Colonel Scott? And is that still a part of the Scott family that's still around?
Well, he was a officer in the Civil War,
Yeah.
and then he purchased. I don't know, what year did he purchase it?
Some land there up in Ha Ha
He
Tonka?
purchased Ha Ha Tonka, and then he sold it to Snyder's.
Okay, so he was the owner before the Snyder family that built the castle and all that up
And
there.
before that, then Roaches owned that property.
Oh, wow.
The Roach family did.
So this property, I mean, has been a very highly valued property for hundreds of years. I mean, maybe even more than that. But in the local white man era, it's been
For the whole time.
yeah. Okay, that's fascinating. From the Indians on forward, and this Colonel Scott, Union or Confederate?
He was Union.
Union. Okay.
And he bought that land in about 1904, thereabouts.
Okay, so it was after the Civil
Snyder's
War.
bought it in 1904.
Yes, they did. Yeah.
Okay.
That's when he sold
He bought
it.
it in
He sold it
Yeah,
to the
that's when he
Snyders.
sold it.
Okay, so he came here after the war, buys Ha Ha Tonka, and
He bought it in 1894 is what you
okay,
got here.
right. So he held it for about 10 years before he sold it to the Snyder family, who built what is up there now. Okay. Where do we go from here with Ha Ha Tonka? Is it always just going to be what it is now?
Well, it's a state park.
So
now.
they can't change it, right?
Not really, no.
Yeah, it is what it is going to be.
Yes. Hopefully forever.
Right, right. It's a special place up there for people that
It is.
haven't been up there. What makes it so special?
Oh, just the history of it, I think, and it is a fantastic view if you're up there.
Yeah.
And of course, it's sort of romantic to think about. He bought this place, he started a building, and then he died.
Yeah.
Unfortunately.
Yeah.
But that's a little bit romantic, I think, and.
Sure.
And it was such a wonderful dream. I mean, the greenhouses and the orchards and the carriage house, and I mean, it was just a beautiful dream.
Yeah.
And then to be, and to die in such a tragic way. I mean,
He was the first pedestrian accident.
he was the first automobile accident.
Really?
He was in the automobile.
He was in his car being chauffeured in Kansas City. He
Wow.
was the first.
Mr.
he was the
Snyder.
first-
And a little boy ran out in front of the car.
Oh, wow, that is tragic.
Yeah, it was. It was a tragic thing.
And then
And-
his son finished it.
Yeah.
Yeah, and this is I think the number one destination, state park
Yeah,
in
in
Missouri.
State Park. Yeah,
Yes.
it's the
So it's and that's a big deal because there's a lot of state parks.
Oh, yeah.
in
Yeah.
Missouri.
Yes.
So okay, so some incredible history with the ladies from the Camden County Museum, Daphne, Norine. So we'll have you back. We'll talk more history as we go. And if you guys ever get a chance, go over to the Camden County Museum, see what they've got over there. What's your website, real quick, where people can look you up?
CamdenCountyMuseum.org.
There you go.
We're also on Facebook.
Okay, there you go. So go see these ladies over there at the museum. Keep watching us. Thank you so much for joining us for Lake TV's Community Spotlight Show.